beneath flags that represent all the boroughs in a feel-like temperature of 12 degrees at City Hall today, taking 38 seconds to say the oath of office using two family Qurans. Zohran Mamdani sounding today a lot like he did the night that he won the election, reaching out to all New Yorkers, particularly those that may feel like their voices have been ignored for way too long, expressing optimism, hope, and a better quality of life for all New Yorkers, not just the wealthy and well-connected, he said today. Referencing life in New York City in such detail, really underscoring his ability to connect with those that he feels keeps this city running on a daily basis.
He told New Yorkers to start demanding greatness again out of City Hall and promised that under his leadership, the city of New York would work for all New Yorkers. Let's go out to political reporter Marcia Kramer. She has been at City Hall all day. Marcia, you have covered countless inaugurations. You've heard a lot of speeches. They really do set the tone for an administration. What were your biggest takeaways? And did Mayor Mamdani do enough to speak to all New Yorkers, his supporters and his critics?
Well, I think that you have to take into consideration one line from his speech. He said, if you are a New Yorker, I am your mayor. He was reaching out to everybody in New York City. He wants to represent everybody. But I think we should also point out that he took on a large and very difficult agenda to accomplish. He says he's going to do all of the campaign promises that he made, and that includes free buses, universal child care, city-run supermarkets, and a rent freeze. He said that he wants everybody to stand together. But one of the things that I thought was really moving when he said that he's going to change the city of New York from a city of no to a city of how. So instead of saying, no, we can't do this, we're going to say, how can we do this? But another thing he said, and he's trying to make sure that he was true to his beliefs, he said, I was elected as a Democratic Socialist, and I'm going to govern as a Democratic Socialist. One thing that was very interesting to me, however, was the response that Bernie Sanders gave when he gave his speech, when he said he thanked New Yorkers for electing Zohran Mamdani for inspiring a nation. And the largest applause that he got was when he called for a new tax on the wealthy to pay for the programs that people need, the working class need. Zohran Mamdani talked about that as well, said he was determined to make the wealthy pay their fair share and to turn this into a city that will make it affordable for everybody to live here. Also, I think you should point out that after a very divisive campaign, he praised former Mayor Eric Adams, and he also talked about his predecessor, Bill de Blasio. Sort of interesting, he talked about a number of mayors, David Dinkins, Bill de Blasio, and Fiorello LaGuardia, who in various times had said that they would promise to make things better, that there wouldn't be a divided city. He said some had been successful more than others, but the truth of the matter is he's determined to make sure that he is successful. He said that he is determined to make this a city that will take care of all New Yorkers. And one thing that I thought was really moving, he said, you know, where else can a Muslim boy grow up eating bagels and lox every Sunday? So clearly he wants to reach out to everybody in the city. He wants this to be a moving administration. And another thing that he did, he asked everybody to stand up, whether they were in the audience or stand up at home, because he wants them to stand up with him to make sure that his agenda gets passed in Albany and that he can make it happen. It was a very moving speech, and I think that you can tell that people here are still cheering and applauding even after the confetti fell. So, live at City Hall, I'm Marcia Kramer, CBS News, New York.
Marcia, I would like to get your perspective on how Zohran Mamdani's success or failure will really have repercussions nationally. You know, we saw Bernie Sanders there. We saw AOC there. Really, the party and the socialism aspect of the Democratic platform really depends on the success or the failure of this administration.
Well, I mean, Bernie Sanders said it himself. I mentioned it earlier. Bernie Sanders said that Zohran Mamdani had inspired a nation. So the thing that people will be looking at, and by the way, so will President Trump and so will everybody across the nation, is whether Zohran Mamdani can deliver. He has taken on a very ambitious agenda. It's not just that he has to promise the rent freeze or he promises free buses. He has to deal with a budget shortfall. He has to deal with cuts from the federal government to all kinds of different programs. So he's going to have to tread very lightly, and he's going to have to convince Albany and Albany lawmakers to raise taxes. Now, how he does it remains to be seen. Governor Hochul is running for re-election. It's going to be tough for her to raise taxes across the board, and she's going to be doing it with the spotlight of Republicans trying to take her job away from her if she's too close to Zohran Mamdani. It's going to be a very interesting tap dance to watch, but one, as you point out, that the entire nation will be watching.
Marcia, thank you. This is certainly a historic mayoralship full of many firsts. The first Muslim mayor of New York City, the first mayor of New York City of South Asian descent. He took the oath on a Quran, 2 Qurans to be specific, and he's now holding a block party right outside the gates of City Hall. Jennifer Bisram is there covering that for us.
Hi there, Jess. Yeah, it was a lot of people who attended this inauguration block party. As a matter of fact, the last of the folks just got in about like 10 minutes or so ago at the tail end of Zohran Mamdani's speech. And I do want to bring in Danny from Brooklyn because she was here. She braved the cold. She was online for about an hour or two, and she was standing here. What did you think of this speech?
The speech was incredible. I've been following Mamdani for a while. My friend does media for him, so I've been seeing him from the start to where he is now. He has such a great way of hitting all different cultural points, like different people, creed, backgrounds.
Do you feel like he did that in his speech today?
Absolutely, absolutely. He just made sure to bring everybody together and make it so that we don't feel like, oh, victory, the job is done. We, the people, actually need to stay active because that's what it requires in activism. So it was really inspiring.
Before I brought you on, you said it was motivating to hear him.
Absolutely.
Why?
Super motivating because he understands that it's going to be challenging. He's not saying that things are going to be perfect, but we're going to try, and we're not just going to do small things just to appease the masses or the status quo. The status quo is why we're all frustrated. People are just surviving and not thriving here. So it's really inspiring to feel what we as New Yorkers feel inside of us, someone that could actually take that flame and hold people accountable and actually do the work and lead. And so it feels like we can trust him.
And you came here in the cold today.
I did!
All right, thank you so much for talking to us. Go warm up.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Okay, and just as I was telling you before, this is the first time ever that there was an inauguration block party here along the Canyon of Heroes. We did talk with lots of people who say they didn't care that it was cold. They wanted to be here to experience the moment. We did talk with a couple, a short time ago also about the speech that Zohran Mamdani just gave. Take a listen.
We thought it was wonderful. I mean, it gave us the hope that we needed. Also, just him talking about that this will not be a divided city, a tale of 2 cities, that it's going to be united, one. Mm-hmm. I think we're excited for that. It's the hope that we need.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I love the speech. I love how he's kind of paying lip service to all the different languages, all the different New Yorkers, all the different people, calling every individual person a universe unto their own, kind of prioritizing individuality as well as being a united city.
And to give you guys an idea, this was several blocks along Broadway here that was blocked off for this block party. And at one point, the people filled up here so much that they were really close to us right here. And if you can see further down, if Al can show you, that is all the way where the people had to go after they got into this entry point. So a lot of people here today, not sure of the exact number yet, but a lot of people came out, braved the cold just to witness this new era, what they call in this city's history. Now, there was word that maybe the mayor would come and greet the people who came at the block party. We haven't seen him yet. It's still unclear if he will do that. But for now, we are live in Lower Manhattan. Jennifer Bisram, CBS News, New York. I'm so cold I can barely say my name. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
I know you must be freezing, and we thank you so much for braving those elements. But one quick question. Are you separated from the crowd that was gathered? I mean, was there a pretty big space between you and the crowd? Because it's really hard for us to reference just how many people were there.
So to give you an idea, we are on Liberty Street and Broadway. This is the entry point where people were coming in. And behind our camera, that is where people lined up for several blocks. Once they got in, they had to go all the way down to the end, at least 4 blocks, I want to say, maybe a little bit more. And they filled up all the way down there. So we do have a crew on the other side who's also there, and they were able to give you guys a vantage point there. We were here, and even though we were here till the very end, there were still people at the very last minute filling up in this point. So yes, there was a lot of people here, and they all made sure that they were able to get their way in. And again, the last of the people got in at the very end while Zohran Mamdani was still giving his speech.
All right, understood. Just trying to get a better analysis of what we're seeing on camera versus what's happening there in the 360 view. Jennifer Bisram and your crew, thank you for that. Go inside the live truck and get warm.
Oh, we've all been there. It's miserable. She did a great job out there. All right, let's bring our experts back in. Dick Brennan, Stu Lozier. All right, we all know campaigning and governing are two very different things. Did you see a mayor up on that dais who was intent on bringing all New Yorkers together? And what were your other big takeaways? I mean, you were with Bloomberg for years. You know what it takes to run a successful mayor's office. You covered Mamdani, Dick. What did you see? What were your big takeaways?
Well, first of all, he dug in. I mean, he said, we're not talking about rugged individuals, we're talking about collectivism. He says, I make no apologies for being a democratic socialist. And he said, I will not abandon my principles just because people are going to call me a radical. So he doesn't care what people are going to call him. And this is just sort of him saying, again, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get it done. And this doesn't sound like a man who has to think about compromising with Albany, but in the end, that's what he's going to have to do. So this is more rhetoric from him, but where he goes with it, I don't know, because I don't know if the governor is going to be matching up with this kind of rhetoric, tax the rich, that kind of thing.
Well, she's already made it clear she's not willing to do that.
She's not willing to do that, so where is he going with this?
Stu, what was missing from this speech?
The antagonism was missing. There wasn't really an us versus them. You heard an us versus them in some speeches. Certainly heard it when Bill de Blasio was elected. I was struck. This is a man who, it's not just what you say. Everything that Dick said is right. All the words he said were right. But it's not just what you say, it's how you say it in life and in politics. Zohran Mamdani is so different because he campaigns on TikTok. He speaks in the cadence of TikTok. This was not a TikTok cadence. This was like a 1980s New York telephone ad cadence. We're all connected, New York telephone. That's what he's saying. He's speaking to like boomers and Gen X. Remember, there's a Gen X. That this is not going to be scary. Some of the words he said, I mean, sure, he name-checked Sinatra and Pastrami on Rye. But he said, as Marcia quoted, if you're a New Yorker, I'm your mayor. So who's the mayor who said, to those who do not vote for me, I'm going to be your mayor too? In an inaugural address, 30 years ago tomorrow, Rudy Giuliani used almost the exact same words to reach out after his contentious fight with David Dinkins as Zohran Mamdani is using today, almost word for word. It is a radical speech, maybe, and certainly some aggressive policies, but it is couched in incredibly traditional, familiar, comforting tones.
It was almost Kennedy-esque, Ted Kennedy-esque in some ways. At the end, where he said, we will go on, the effort doesn't end. That was one other thing, a point he has made. He really wants to keep those 100,000 volunteers, and he wants the campaign to continue. He even mentioned at one point that he had spoken to Barack Obama, and that Barack Obama had said, this was in a New York Magazine article, that perhaps he didn't harness that energy that he had after he was elected, and that Mamdani said, you know, I want to harness that energy and keep it going, essentially keep the campaign going. And when Stu says nobody delivers a speech better than he does, it's absolutely true. There is a Kennedy-esque quality to it, a positive quality to it, but again, not tremendous amount direct reach out to certain communities. And by the way, I noticed not a lot of confrontation with Donald Trump. We heard it from Jumaane Williams. We heard it from other speakers, but only mentioned Trump's name once, referencing the people who voted for Trump on Fordham Road and Hillside Avenue and then voted for him, which he takes that as a badge of honor.
Well, there's a lot of Easter eggs in this speech. I mean, there's the one reference to Palestinian state and supporting Palestinian state over Israel. There was one reference to the word abundance, which is a code word, not a negative code word, but a code word for so much of Zohran Mamdani's based in educated white people from Brooklyn. I mean, there's a lot of hidden in there. Right. He was really masterful in that way. But if he thought his job was to say, I'm not so scary, I'm going to come in and talk to you about campaigning about making government work better, and you should have the same expectations from government employees as you do from the private sector. He did it in a way that I think is going to really satisfy and comfort a lot of people.
Okay, so what's next then? You were with Bloomberg during his second term, day one. What are we doing? Are we doing housekeeping? What issue is he tackling to show I can be successful in this new role?
It's a great question. I don't know. I don't have any great insights exactly what he's going to do, but he has to do something. I mean, like the notion that government you should have the same expectations out of government employees as you do from the private sector is a little bit new. It's not something I feel I heard a lot of in the campaign, and I'm curious what he's going to do. I'm biased. That was Mike Bloomberg spokesman. I believe that the last time government really got a top-to-bottom tech rehab was in the years 2002 and 2003 when Mike Bloomberg came in, when we invented 311, which was before anyone had smartphones, let alone smartphones with cameras and GPS. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot he can do to say, we are doing big work early to catch up. And I presume we'll see something. My guess is we'll see something like that in the next day or two.
You know, a couple of things that I didn't hear in that speech was any direct any direct message to the Jewish community. I also didn't hear any sort of direct message to public officials in law enforcement. Those are two very contentious relationships from the very beginning of his campaign that continue today. Was that a mistake not to make those two references? You know, you mentioned, Stu, that he did a very good job at saying, like, listen, I'm not this scary man that's going to come in here and disrupt all of your lives. But those are two really important relationships that he needs to help to maintain to keep peace in this city.
Well, I agree with you on the public safety. I think there's less of that than I thought we might hear. He talked about Yiddish. He talked about pastrami and rye. He talked about growing up and eating bagels and lox. There were some reaching out. There was some references.
But that's your Easter egg point. It wasn't like a direct message. Right.
Yeah,
right.
I think Jewish audiences hear that.
They got that.
I think Jewish audiences hear that. I think that, like, you know, like, I'm not a religious Catholic. I think that if I were a religious Catholic, I would have looked at that group of clergy behind him and said, "Where's the Catholic?"
Yeah.
Catholic City. He mentioned Irish and Italian way down, but like
in Woodhaven, yeah.
You know, there was. I feel like there was a bunch of reactions to the Jewish community, a bunch of Easter eggs for the Jewish community, so to speak, Passover Seder eggs for the Jewish community, if you will. But I did not hear like a ton. There's some to white Catholics and some to some neighborhoods, but like I was a little surprised that there was less of that.
But
maybe I didn't hear it.
But to Kristine's point about the NYPD, that was a miss. I mean, I was thinking we would see something. Here's something a little bit more forthcoming. Do you think that's sort of behind the scenes situation?
I think that he has he's allowed an extraordinary, perhaps one of the best two police commissioners our city's ever had, asked her to stay.
Yeah.
That isn't the most important thing. That's everything. Rank and file, yes, it could have been more on rank and file. There absolutely could have been. But, you know, in the case of public safety, it's about numbers. It really is about you. There's always a perception of, do I feel safe? Do I not feel safe? And that's hard to fight. It's about murders. We ended New York. New York ended last year with 332 murders. It's extraordinary, down from a high of 2,000. And you know, when we were in office, we thought if we could get it under 500, it would be a miracle. It's a number that matters for the NYPD, and that's what he'll be judged by.
I think he said right at the top, there are those of you who distrust and disdain me, but he said, I'm going to be the mayor for all the people. I think he just wanted to sort of gloss over that and say, hey, I'm talking to you. Maybe I'm not mentioning your specific group, but I am talking to you, and that's what Stu's getting at.
Well, he
but
also
more
said actions matter more than what I'm going to say right now.
Absolutely. So I think he gave it, but he only not fully, not what you might have expected, as Kristine points out. No direct, olive branches, so to speak. But I think he, in his mind, he said, hey, I spoke to all New Yorkers.
Oh, he gave one to the former mayor, Mayor Adams.
Yes.
So I just sort of figured he might go a little extra step there as too. But Stu, let's talk about this agenda, okay? What are the main things? Universal child care. That is such a complicated topic. How are we going to, number one, pay for it? How is it going to roll out? Who's going to qualify for this? Where are these daycare centers going to be placed? Is it where the person works, so that they can get to the daycare on time and not have to leave work an hour before they're scheduled to leave, just so that they can get to the daycare before it closes? It's so complicated.
It's extraordinary. We don't know a lot of it. We know he's put a woman named Emmy Liss, who left the Five Borough Institute, a centrist think tank, to run this program for him. That's a great sign. She's incredibly well thought of, and she's praised by people I know that whose word I take, so that's great. And you're exactly right. I mean, the issue, the great issue, is that there are fundamentally two kinds of people who are employed in New York. There's either the person who has to leave to get their kid by 5 o'clock because they get fined or they get whatever, or the person whose coworker leaves. Either way, if something happens at 4 in the afternoon, you are either running for your kid or you have a member of your team running for your kid. This is universal, no matter whether you work at a law firm, whether you work at a bank, whether you work at a bodega, whether it is for everyone. This is an extraordinarily difficult and complex issue because it's the New Yorkers with the least money who are in the worst situation. New Yorkers with a fair amount of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars of income, still in a very tough situation. And really, it affects everyone. Everyone who has a coworker.
Well, to Dick's point earlier, how are we going to pay for this? Because the governor said we need it across New York. It can't just
we're going to hear from
New
her
York City.
in 2 weeks.
That's right.
When she gives her State of the State address. She almost certainly is going to lay out some sort of plan because, let's face it, she's running for re-election herself. And you would imagine that she's already had conversations with Mamdani about what she is laying out because it's only a few weeks away. But as we point out, $15 billion. She says she wants it statewide, not just in the cities. We spoke earlier about who does this affect? Does it go all the way back to 6-month-olds and then all the way up? How many numbers? None of this has been worked out, and I think in part because nobody knows where they're getting the money from.
Well, yeah.
And also we're dealing with little people's lives.
Yes.
You know, this is not whether or not a bus is late on a route. We're talking about
and
little...
it's not, the historical precedent might be Bill de Blasio coming in saying, I want paid sick leave for all New Yorkers. But the important thing to remember is that big companies already paid sick leave. It was just a question of mandates and rules and this and that. That was a technical question, but it's not like if you work at a law firm, they want you coming in when you're sick. If you work at a law firm, they don't pay for your child care. And this is a big thing to take on.
We only have a couple of minutes left, but I just want to get your overarching thoughts. How symbolic is a day like today for a new administration, especially one who's setting all these precedents, breaking all these historic norms? How symbolic was that, in your opinion?
It's extraordinarily symbolic for the city of New York, and not just because of the city of New York. It's because the whole nation has been watching. Zohran Mamdani is, in Donald Trump's words, a rock star.
Yeah.
He said he'd never seen a response in the Oval Office when Zohran Mamdani walks in. So when he speaks, the nation listens. The question is, what message is it going out to the nation? I think it's very firm coming from him. He believes in democratic socialism. This is how he wants to lead the city. And so I think a nation will be looking to you, Zohran Mamdani, and saying, how's this going to work out? Because is this going to be the future of the Democratic Party in cities across the country?
And speaking just from a local level, Stu, this is very symbolic for the Muslim community. They see themselves in this man that now is head of our city.
Extraordinary moment. The New York Post, often caricatured New York Post today, points out there are about as many Muslims as there are as Jews in New York this morning.
Wow.
So.
Stu Lozier, Dick Brennan, pleasure to spend this afternoon with both of you. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching our special coverage of the swearing in of Mayor Zohran Mamdani. I'm Jessica Bohr.
And I'm Kristine Johnson. We'll have much more analysis coming up on the news at 5, 6, and 11. And to hear the oath and Mayor Mamdani's entire speech anytime, we post it online. We'll see you soon.